The tough conversation I had to have was kick your adult child out the house and sell your mom's house. Ultimately, that's the asset that will save you guys. I have to be the unemotional party involved. Clients, as you should, there is some form of emotion that goes into decision making, but it shouldn't be the first.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. I am super excited for today's guest, Rashonner Lillie. Now, Rashonner is a private wealth advisor with Ameriprise Financial Services and the founding partner of Reveal Wealth Strategies. And she's one of the financial advisors approved by the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association, to work with current and former NFL players, which is a credential held by only a small group of advisors in the country. She takes a whole picture approach to her clients' financial lives, looking across cash reserves, debt, investments, protection, taxes, and estate planning to build strategies tailored to each person's goals. Her work spans retirement planning, employee stock options, wealth preservation, family finances, insurance, and education planning, with a practice built on asking targeted questions, listening closely, and making sure her clients feel genuine confidence about both today and the decades ahead. I am super excited, Rashonner, to chat with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
So, Rashonner, why don't you give our listeners a quick 30 to 60 second background about who you are and a little bit about, what you do in the world of financial advising.
So if you can believe it, those who are watching the video, been doing this 21 years. And so what got me into the industry of financial advising is kind of the typical road. I was a finance major, a banking minor, but personally, I saw some of the trials with my parents. And so they got sick relatively early age in their 50s and passed away. And I saw the different nuances that the family had to endure as far as navigating estate planning, navigating retirement, life insurance. Where are these things? Is it enough? Will this suffice for the things that they wanted accomplished? And I saw some errors. And these are things that really drove me more to the personal finance part of finance as opposed to more corporate, because I lived through it at an early age in my 20s. And so started financial advising in 2004 and really just grew the practice organically with referrals through my personal network, parents' relationships, friends, parents' relationships. And so it's great now to be at this point of arrival with the team at Reveal. We have 3 offices, one in Houston, one in Dallas, one in Atlanta. We have 8 advisors currently. So it's great to see the growth and how we've impacted so many lives, thousands of people throughout the years.
So early on, before you even got into, before you went to college, before you got into your majors, like, did you know from an earlier stage? I know you said that there was, you talked about your family, how they got sick early and the importance of just planning with estate and getting those finances in order. Was that, at what stage did you know that finance, banking, financial management was
that too?
At what point did you know that, like, did you always have an interest in finances from an early age? Like, where did that spark start?
And, as we're talking, I'm kind of looking into my home office and I see cards that my mom wrote to me while I was in college. She always called me her little millionaire because she said, even in an early age, you would find ways to engineer or make money. It was weird. I mean, funny story, in 5th grade, obviously I'm trick-or-treating as a child. I never was big into sweets and candy. It never really was my thing. And so what I would do, I say, well, I have all this free candy that everyone has given me. I really don't want all of this. I would pick out my favorites and I would literally sell it for, let's call it 25, 50 cents at school, right? I mean, that's just one example, but she was like, you would always find ways. You were a big saver. You would save money under your bed. Like, we didn't necessarily teach you this, and so she's just like, you always had a mind for business and you didn't even know you were doing it. And so I think just kind of organically, I do give credit to my mother because she was entrepreneurial minded, but I just think it came organically to me at a very young age. And then I understood as I got older, okay, this is the path that I would use this skill. I actually like math, one of the few people that actually enjoyed math. That's the one subject that made sense to me. And so kind of, once again, almost a typical path.
Now, when you started to deal with your own family finances, you said when your family got sick, what
Yeah.
were the gaps that you saw as you were going through all of that? You talked about estate planning. Like
Mhm.
what type of impact did that have and how it shaped the way that you approach financial management, financial planning, these days?
So asking the questions and having professionals involved from the beginning. The thing about estate planning is when you're gone, it's done. There's no revisions, right? So even though my mom had a will, there were mistakes that she made based on her passing away in Texas and community property laws. There's things she didn't know. So in her will, she wrote it one way, but she really intended it another way. But after we, spoke with an attorney, we realized this is not what my mom meant, right? She thought she was doing the right thing, kind of self-created a will. This was, back 90s or something. But didn't have an attorney review it. I think having professionals like financial advisors, like estate attorneys involved from the beginning to help circumvent and answer the questions you don't know to ask, correct the issues you don't know were apparent is extremely important. Things like, to this day, we've never found a life insurance policy that she told us she had. To this day, about 20 years later, right? Understanding the importance of involving, a family member. They don't have to know all the details, but hey, this is where all of my documents are. And so there's an online service, DocuBank, where you can online, upload estate documents. You can give it to your financial advisor. Several clients will give me all their documents so they know another professional has it. My dad, he passed intestate, essentially meaning he didn't have a will. But thankfully, it was simple. He only had two children, me and my sister, so it was easy. But someone could have come in, right, and made it very difficult for us. And so we had to get an attorney involved and settle some debts and things like that. But there's certain things he could have done that could have alleviated that. One more thing, um, my parents were divorced at the time of their passing, and my dad forgot, we're assuming, forgot to remove my mom from his life insurance. They had been divorced, a decade, right? Um, and these are things I've seen also in my practice. Thankfully, the money, he wasn't married, so the money came to his daughters at the laws at the time. It wouldn't be that case today. But in the case today, that money that he had left to his ex-wife would have gone to his ex-wife, even if he had remarried. A lot of people just don't know these rules that they pay out to whoever's listed. And that happened actually to a client of mine. She was an ex-wife. So she was on the receiving end to an ex-husband's mistake and inherited over $200,000. And the current wife was very upset, right? So these are these things that I've seen play out in the past personally, as well as in my professional career.
It's wild. You mentioned something that I thought was really, really impactful, and I hope that people are listening right now. It sparks a sense of urgency for them to be a little bit proactive. You said
Yeah,
when you're gone, all of your planning's done. There's nothing that you can change, right? There's nothing that you can retroactively
correct.
fix, because whatever you set in motion on the front end is what is going to be executed upon that time. And I've spoken with so many financial planners and estate planning attorneys, and they echo a lot of the same things that you mentioned, which so many consumers and individuals just don't plan for. And I think what is coming to my mind is like, it is so important that, like, it's not a one and done. You plan it once and you're done. Like,
Correct.
it is an
Correct.
active management thing as your life changes, as
Yes, sir.
divorce happens, your beneficiaries have to change your life. Like, I've heard so many stories about life insurance going to someone that is no longer part of the
Absolutely.
family, whether it's divorced.
Absolutely.
And so as you are working with clients, are they coming, what is kind of like the most common trigger that causes them to engage in an early conversation with you? Is it something with estate planning, or is it financial management? Like, an ideal client, like, how are they approaching you? How are they reaching out to you? Like, what are some of the events that are happening in their life that's causing them to start to take this seriously or fix their current situation?
I would say number one is retirement planning. Am
Hmm.
I on track? Am I doing the right things? Because I want to be done and I don't want to have to work longer than what I would like. That's generally the trigger, whether someone's in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. That's generally the trigger, or retirement. So, hey, I want to retire next year, right? And then they come to me and want me to fix, 10 years of mistakes. But ultimately, generally, they come to me when they want to ensure they're being financially prudent and eventually will be financially independent by a certain age. And then I ask all
Awesome.
the questions about all the rest of the things, but generally that's the trigger.
Got it. So retirement planning, or near retirement is
Yeah,
one of the primary triggers. Now, you work with a lot of high net worth individuals.
I do.
You're approved by the NFLPA to work with NFL players,
Hmm.
former and current, and you also work with. I know you work with a lot of obviously non NFL players.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the maybe differences between the two, and
Hmm.
also similarities, because those are two totally different niches and types of minds. But what are some of those similarities? We'll start there. What are the similarities between, let's say, someone that's that's very public facing, NFLPA,
Yeah.
and then someone who is working for corporate America, or an entrepreneur and working with you?
The most common question that they want answered is, I want to ensure that I don't outlive my money. That's from both. Now, um, they approach it differently, but essentially that's what they're wanting me to answer. And they're wanting me to take control. When I say control, meaning here's my information, tell me what to do, right? When they've come to a financial advisor, generally you've gotten to that stage of release of, I'm ready to, take my financial situation, my wealth to a next level. So that's the common thing, is make sure I don't run out of money. The other common thing is that they will tend to take direction at this stage. I will tell you, the NFL or athletes in general can tend to be more of a challenge, for sure, than a typical business owner. For one, the athlete has a different lifestyle. Their work schedule is much different and intense for a certain period of time, and just really not as available, so on and so forth. But they still want that level of trust. They want to be able to trust you. I don't care, business owner, W-2 employee, or player. Trust is extremely important. And that's something that has to be earned. The good thing is, most of my clients, if not all, are referrals. So they know someone who's worked with me. So most people come to me with their guard down. But that's one of the biggest things. They want to trust me. They want to ensure fiduciarily I'm doing what is in their best interest, not putting myself first. Thirdly, I don't want to run out of money. So how do we
Mhm.
do this? So I would say that those will be the commonalities between the two.
When you are working with high earners or athletes in general, what are there typical patterns that you're watching in this industry, or you're seeing happen in this industry, that you have to protect your clients over? Like, maybe they are, seeing something on the media, or they're seeing, oh, these markets are doing great, or this investment strategy is doing awesome. Is there anything trending right now that you are seeing your clients bring up that maybe you have to protect them against, in terms of their long-term financial situation?
And I'll answer that question twofold. For one,
Sure.
I'm protecting my clients from themselves, right? And making emotional decisions in all facets of life, emotional financial decisions. I'll say that. Two, it's AI. Artificial intelligence is one of the biggest disruptors, I would say, right now in the financial services industry. And people believing that Chat GPT or Claude can be their advisor holistically. Not that you can't ask it
Mm,
fundamental, basic questions, but that it can replace Rashonner. Like, what can you possibly know that this AI bot can't tell me? Here's a danger in that. The danger is you have to ask AI the question. And one of big the big pieces of advice, or the big things that I say to new clients is, I'm here, for one, to be your accountability partner. Two is to ask the questions or answer the questions you don't know to ask at
mm,
all. And to be proactive, not reactive. So AI is reactive. You're asking it a question, and then depending on which LLM that you're using, they're programmed to sometimes agree with you, depending on how you're phrasing the question. A lot of people don't know that because it's a robot. It learns, right? And so depending on the data in, it can sway one way or the other. So be an unbiased opinion, especially with spouses, that can tend to be very helpful. But two, keeping up with the changing landscape, whether it is, like I talked about, estate planning. Those laws have changed so much in the last 20 years since my parents passed. The tax laws have changed. The retirement rules have changed. Once again, what are you going to put in to ChatGPT when you don't know this change has even occurred, right? So it's dangerous to believe that it can replace that human factor. And knowing you personally, there is a extreme advantage in someone knowing the ins and outs of your life, those subjective things that math is not going to factor into, right? With you asking, can I retire? But they don't know you're taking care of your mom. They don't know you have a mountain of credit card debt. They don't know you're wanting to buy a vacation home in North Carolina. It's all these different variables, right, that I have to factor in when someone asks me that very basic question, can I retire? I have to factor in, can you afford to send your children to college, which was actually your number one priority, and still retire at the same time, right? Can mom move in because she's, dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's, and you want to build a mother-in-law suite? Like all these different things that I'm having to factor in that AI is going to have to try to answer at the same time. And it's difficult to balance all those factors.
That's got to be extremely top of mind, artificial intelligence. And when you, one of the things I love what you just said is, your job is to ask them the questions they don't know to ask.
Correct.
Right. And that comes from deep learning. That comes from uncovering. That comes from going 4 levels deep of asking another question, another question, another question. And that's
Correct.
right now, like, I think that people find a lot of instant gratification with AI, but it still
Yeah.
lacks the trust. And I think that you've highlighted that pretty clearly. So I want to ask you this: what are some of those questions that your clients don't know to ask? Like, obviously, it's going to vary from
Sure.
every single client, but like, how can we go a couple layers deep here on this interview so people start to really understand the value of a true financial advisor that knows the right questions to ask?
And so major purchases. So often as you're either nearing retirement or maybe a decade from retirement, what I run into often is people make major purchases, whether it's I want to purchase a new home or a vacation home, or like I mentioned, um, it may be a major expense like caring for a family member. And it's what's the best way to do that while I still put my kid through college? So some of those questions to ask is, how do I prioritize the different goals that I have? What do I fund first, second, third? How do I fund it? People have never heard of margin lending as a funding source. That's where you can actually borrow from taxable non-retirement investments as a short-term solution. Securities-based lending is what it's called. It's ways that sometimes HELOCs can make sense, home equity line of credit. Sometimes it doesn't, right? When should I use these vehicles, or should I just use the cash I have? Should I use sell out of my investments and pay for X, Y, and Z? It's determining, once again, prioritizing what you're wanting to do and what vehicles to use to fund certain goals, in what order and at what time, and factoring in market performance. So we're not selling something that's already down and then we're magnifying losses. And so it's really ensuring that clients are not making emotional decisions. Another thing that is a big hot topic is our taxes. So I would pretty much be confident in saying that from retirement planning, the tax landscape has changed a lot just in the last 5 years since COVID. They've changed RMD rules, required minimum distributions. It used to be 70 and a half when you have to do that. Now it's 73 and 75. There are ways that you cannot be taxed on that distribution. Did you know that, Mr. and Mrs. Client? How can that be? Well, if you already give to charity, if you give directly to charity, you won't be taxed on that distribution. Did you know if you're over 50 now, there are different rules for you with contributions? They've even changed it a bit more. When you're over 60 now, you can contribute to your retirement accounts a little bit more than you could when you were in your 40s. So now they're changing how you can contribute to those 401ks at work. After a certain amount, it has to be Roth. Did you know that? Right? So these are the things that literally are changing year by year. And a lot of it has to do with retirement vehicles and retirement planning. And
Mm.
so those are just two. So how to fund major purchases and major expenses that will happen. Client just called me today about an expected major expense. And I was explaining to her about how she's still on track for her goals. Even though emergency fund is decreased because of this unexpected expense, you're still on track. And actually what you had to take out because of this major expense actually made up for you in capital gains year to date. So that, help ease the blow a little bit. And so these are some of the things that I help clients navigate through and talk them off of the emotional ledge, if you will.
Well, you mentioned taxes are clearly another hot button topic. So, what is happening? Can we go into a little bit more detail? What is happening in the tax landscape in the past 12 months or 6 months that
Mhm.
people probably aren't aware of, but could have a significant impact as they start to approach retirement or maybe already be in retirement? So, I know you already talked about a couple of things, but let's go a little bit deeper on that because I think that's very relevant.
So last year, 2025, President Trump passed that whole One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And so that was passed in July of 2025. And those different legislative changes have gone into effect in 2026. And so some of those things that are on there is now seniors get an extra $6,000 tax deduction if you're not over a certain income. So that is helping people as far as taxes. And once again, 65 and older. So that's the senior, is 65 and over. So you get an extra tax deduction, $6,000. There are what you call the new Trump accounts. If you haven't heard of that, that's for minors through age 18. That is a government-based investment account for minors. The government's actually giving children born between 2025 and 2028 $1,000 to open this account. And then the Dale Foundation, Michael Dale, they actually will give an extra $250 if you live in a certain zip code and meet certain, I think, income requirements as well. So that's something as well that's new that can help children. There are also different tax deductions, like car loan interest now can be tax deductible if the car was made in the US. So these are ways to save money on taxes. Keep in mind, most tax deduction strategies, I tell my clients often, you don't qualify for, because in the US, we tend to have income phase outs. So when you're single and you start to make around $75,000 to $100,000, you start phasing out of some of these tax deductions I'm mentioning. When you're married, tends to be around 200 to 250,000. You start phasing out. Phasing out meaning you can't get that full tax deduction, or you may not be able to get it at all. As far as retirement, they also changed between age 60 and 63. You can make additional retirement contributions, even more so than when you're over age 50. Why they chose age 60 to 63, have no idea, but they're giving you the opportunity to make more contributions during that time frame. And then as well, the contributions over $24,500 in 2026 for people over age 50 has to be made into the Roth portion of your employer retirement plan. So like your 401k or your 403b at work. Before, you could put all that pre-tax catch-up contribution over age 50 into the pre-tax bucket to get your tax deduction. Now the government's like, no, 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 no. After $24,500, the next $8,000 up to $32,500 has to go into a Roth,
Hmm.
right? So these are some of the rules I've had to coach clients on, get them prepared for it, start telling them fourth quarter last year, some things we were going to change. So those are just a few examples in the last year.
Rashonner, can you walk me through what happens within the first, say, 30 to 60 days of working with a new client? Help me explain, what makes your craft unique and how you're
Mhm.
different from, you know, many of the other financial advisors. I want to hear your specific methodology, your focal lens, the way that you view financial advising for your clients. Walk me through what happens in that first 1 to 2 months of working with somebody new.
So essentially my value proposition, right? That's what we
Yeah.
call it here. So
Yep.
one of the big things that sets me apart and our team in general apart is, for one, we have standard operating procedures. We don't fly by the seat of our pants to where we have Joel coming in and we're going to do it this way for him and that way for another person. Recommendations, sure, are going to be different, but the way they're onboarded as a client, the way they're communicated to is going to be unique and it's going to be proactive. So for one, we have consultation calls with anyone who comes in, anyone that reaches out via email. And generally I'm getting at least 1 to 2 consultations a week via online, via social media, via calls. And I have associate advisor that takes those consultation calls. So we're going to give everybody 20, 30 minutes, no charge, right? Why are you calling? How can we help? Are we a good fit? Once my associate advisor gives me those notes, I determine which advisor on the team is going to be the best fit for me, for them, whether it's me or someone else, one of the other 7 advisors, depending on what their needs are, income, net worth, complexity. From there, we determine if they're going to be investment, financial planning, combination of both, the type of client. We make sure that they have a separate in-person or virtual meeting after we've determined which advisor they will work with and that they agree to work with the team. You're going to either come into the office in Houston with me or you're going to have a virtual meeting. From there, we're going to go through the process. We're going to meet the whole team. I have, me personally, I have 2 assistants, one virtual, one in person. They're going to meet all the advisors on the team, through pictures and through their roles. They're going to understand the technology capacity, as far as signing, electronically, having an app with the Ameriprise, all these different things that they're going to do. They're going to have a timeline. This is what you're going to expect. Just like what you're asking me, 30, 60, 90 days, right? This is what we expect from you. This is what you can expect from us, right? And then ultimately, they're going to get a call a month later from my assistant that's here based in Houston, walking them through the website, asking them questions. Have you onboarded well? Do you have questions about this? We see you haven't signed this, so on and so forth. So a check-in from an administrative leader to ensure that the process is going well. And so this is what I feel advisors really miss out on, is that initial onboarding process, that
Mm.
whole 60 to 90 days, because you're so busy doing so many other things. And so that's why we have a set way of doing things. So people feel unique, they feel welcome, and they feel proactively contacted. So, and we connect with them on social media. They get my newsletter I send out every other month. And so just get to know more about us, even personally, aside from business wise.
Well, so one of the things I want to highlight that I think makes you so unique is like you have a team, like you have a process. Explain the value of having a comprehensive team working on someone's specific goals versus just an individual financial
Mhm.
advisor who's kind of doing it all themselves. I think this is a very important thing uh, to understand, and having the value of a full comprehensive team moving them towards their goals.
And I would say it is a value add. I know many advisors are very successful and they're solo practitioners. They just got to work a little bit harder, is what ends up happening. And so here we're able to utilize the skills of so many people, and the client doesn't feel when their advisor's out of the office. If I'm out on vacation or ill, guess what? They don't have to call a 1-800 number. They don't have to try to figure it out on their own. You have my assistant, you have my founding partner, Mickey, they can call. They have access to my notes. We use a CRM system to where my notes and my calls are all logged. Their financial planning recommendations are in the cloud as well. So they can know what I talked about last with the client, what their portfolio should be, so on and so forth. The ball doesn't get dropped. And
Mm.
that's that whole standard operating procedure that I kind of drill in the team's head. I'm the COO of the team. And so ensuring that, God forbid, someone's ill, someone leaves, the client doesn't feel any disruption. So having the ability to have not only staff, but other advisors that can pick up whether other advisors and give advice, right? You don't have to wait for Rashonner to get back to the office. I'm going to tell you, based on the information that she has, your portfolio, the financial plan, this is what you should do, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's huge. It's huge. I don't have to come back to a build up of 50 calls I have to make because I was going on a 7-day vacation. So
Yep.
it's a great client experience, I would think. And then they got to know everyone on the team. And we have client events. I just had a client event in Plano, out Fort Worth, Dallas area recently. So they're seeing the team in person. They're getting to know people. We have an event every year in Houston as well as in Atlanta. So you really grow relationships with these people.
And what was the event like? So tell me what some of these client events are like, because I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we make it non-business, right? It's not we don't bait and switch you. It's not you come in for this fun event, then we spring a seminar on you about Social Security. So it's generally our staple event is a jazz brunch in Houston, and so we will tend to have about 180 guests there. We'll rent out an entire restaurant. We have a Morton Steakhouse here in Houston, and
Oh,
so we'll you like Morton's. And so we'll rent out the whole
mm,
place. We'll have a specialized menu. We have a jazz artist playing the saxophone. We have gifts. We have signature drinks there, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. We play games as well. And so it's a good time. Now clients know each other, right? We try to rotate the invitation so everybody can come because obviously there are thousands of clients. And so they will see some of the same people each year. And so it's so fun to see, oh, hi. And people become friends at our jazz brunches. People dated at our events. It's very fun. They've started dating, each other. So you never know. You never know what'll happen. It's a good time, and it just really deepens a relationship. For us as advisor, it kind of indirectly builds business because people will refer. They'll bring their
yep.
friends, they'll bring family members to it, and those people eventually become clients. So it's a win-win for us.
So I think the biggest takeaway that I've heard so far is not only are you a financial advisor, you're also the future match.com. Uh,
Exactly.
the
That's
entrepreneur in
that's
you,
my
I think,
stage
has
too.
that's right. The entrepreneur in you, I think, has a new exit strategy
Absolutely.
that you can build. Um, okay, I want to ask you a question that hopefully gets us to see how your practice and how you have changed over the years in the world of financial advising. So can you give me, you know, without naming any names, like talk
Sure.
about a client that you worked with that changed how you the type of impact that you truly make for them. Obviously, you're managing their finances. That comes with a lot of weight and responsibility.
Yeah.
But what's the true downstream effect of, when you worked with this client, you saw the true difference in what you were providing for them as a service.
So one of the most heartfelt stories that I have is I started working with someone in their early 30s. And at the time, healthy person, working in the oil and gas industry, um, single, no children. She came to me and she actually worked with a colleague of mine who had gotten out the business. So he had set her up with life insurance and some investments. I was looking over everything. I said, okay, things look good. Let's fine tune some things. And she was like, listen, I'm single, don't have any kids. Why do I need, this life insurance, right? And I said, listen to me, well. You're young, you never know what will unfold from year to year. The one constant in life is change. And so let's keep this in force at least for another 10, 15 years, right? Let's at least get to your late 40s or, early 50s before we decide on canceling life insurance. You've already been approved. One thing about insurance is you can't buy it when you need it most. And
Mm,
so she would bring it up often, every couple of years. Oh, I need this insurance because she would look at the premium, right? She didn't want to pay the premium anymore. And it was great. It had a long-term care feature to it to where while you're living, you could actually pull from it tax-free. It was great. I said, this is actually a really good policy. Let's give me another couple years because she had an illness. It wasn't life-threatening to where she's like, I can't even have children. Like, who's going to get this money, right? Come to find out, probably 4 or 5 years into our relationship, she got pregnant out of the blue, got pregnant, end up, having the child, healthy child. And I said, see, look at it, because she didn't want the life insurance or the disability. He had gotten her both. And I said, no, 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 no. I am not canceling this disability. You're more, it's very common for people to have disability events um, well before passing away. And so I said, no, let's keep them. Either way, end up having a child unexpectedly. Happy we kept the life insurance. The sad part where it made a turn was that she developed a life-threatening disease in her 30s. to where she passed away by the time she was 38 or 39 years old.
Mm.
Um, as she was ill, obviously, I'm talking with her. Met with her and her attorney. We got the estate plan, opened a trust. You know, she, thanked me again for keeping the life insurance. We were even going to pull on the long-term care, started the application, and she passed away. Right. Um, that's one of the most impactful stories that in my career I had to live through. I think she was a client of mine for probably 8 years before she passed. So I saw her in these different stages of life, young, healthy, not a mother to health failing, mother passing away. And I saw the impact that now her child is taken care of. Her child has the trust. The child has the life insurance. The child is able to go to private schools and do the things I know she wanted the child to do. And so that's those are the things that I think about her often that makes this job worth the stress, right? Of having to be the decision maker for so many families, people relying on me, depending on me to get them to the next financial stage in life. And when you see the advice that you gave and not just letting the client emotionally do what they want to do because they didn't want to pay $100 a month for life insurance and disability, it makes it all worth it. It
Hmm.
makes it all worth it. And to get calls from, family member, like, thank you. I've heard about you for years and years, with her family members reaching out and was like, I want you to help me like you helped my sister. Right. Um, it means a lot. It means a lot.
It's really hard for people who I have to imagine that having life insurance conversations with someone who is totally healthy is probably
Correct.
one of the most challenging conversations to have because, like, I don't need it. I'm always going to be healthy. Nothing is ever going to happen to me. Um, but I think that those stories are what really hit home, and for people who are planners and proactive,
Yeah.
I think it's a great spark to light that fire a little bit. Like, okay, hey, gears should start to be churning a little bit. What could happen, and who is depending on me.
Correct.
For X, Y, and Z. And so I think that's a really really impactful story. I want to flip the tables a little bit,
Yeah.
and so we talked about the impact that you have now, and a story about how it really changed the way that you viewed your line of work. But what's the hardest conversation you've had to have with a client recently, and how did you handle it?
You put me on the spot, Joel. I have difficult conversations every day. I'm always the heavy here. I would
Yep.
say the difficult conversations are generally telling someone that they will have to work longer. Um, I will tell you, and this is not being arrogant at all, if they've been with me long enough, thankfully, I don't have to deliver too many bad recommendations, like bad news, right?
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think if I've been in well, it wasn't recently. That's I'm trying to think some of
That's
the
fine.
bad
Just
news I
one
had to
one
deliver
example is fine. Yeah.
that you're going to run out of money. So I had someone that um, they came to me in their 60s, right? Those situations where they come to me and it's like, I want to retire, you know, and so life has been lived at this point. I'm on the tail end, and so
Hmm.
now I'm like, I have to make it work. They had an ill parent, and I told them that the velocity that they were taking out the withdrawals is not sustainable. I can't make you enough money at the volume that you're withdrawing because they were taking care of their parent in a nursing home. What ended up happening is the wife went through all of her retirement because the mom lived almost 100. So these people were in their 60s, 70s. The parent was in their 90s. The mom went through all her money, the one in the nursing home. Then it went to her daughter. Daughter went through all her money. When I say all her money, retirement money, IRA money, through all her money. Then we had to go to the husband. The daughter's husband went through all his money, right? So guess who's next? It's going to be the grandchildren. It's going to be the
Mm.
adult grandchildren who are in their 40s trying to support their family. That's who's next. I saw it happening. So I saw it happen many years before. And I said, the tough conversation I had to have was kick your adult child out the house and sell your mom's house, right? and that's a delicate conversation to tell someone when you're unfamiliar with family dynamic. But I'm like,
Yeah.
ultimately, that's the asset that will save you guys. That couple 100,000 is her bucket, is mom's bucket for the nursing home. But you have someone in there that is, keeping you guys from realizing that, and is draining every cent you have. What if you need long-term care at 90? And so these are the very difficult conversations that I often have to have. And sometimes, most times recommendations are taken. They weren't taken in that scenario, um, because of just the family dynamics, right?
Hmm.
But those are some of the tough, because I have to be the unemotional party involved. Clients, as you should, there is some form of emotion that goes into decision making, but it shouldn't be the
Hmm.
first.
Yeah,
Um,
that's got to be incredibly difficult. I can only imagine. Um, but knowing, you know, the potential for that to happen with so many clients, if they do proper planning, and
yeah,
I'm sure this gets into estate planning, like
it is.
in an ideal situation, if you knew that you are going to have a loved one that's going to live until they're 100 years old, right?
Yeah,
You know that they're probably going to go into some sort of long-term care. What is a very high level strategy or high level plan for people to put in place early on to where it doesn't waterfall downstream and just siphon every available asset that is that is available? Because I know that's a huge expense and it's a
yeah.
huge issue these days, long-term care. So what can people do to help protect their family, help protect their estate from, you know, from some of those
Depletion.
inevitable expenses?
Yeah, it's highly likely. So most people don't know over 70% of us are going to need some form of long-term care. Whether you choose to, be in a facility or memory care or someone coming to your home, whatever. Uh, More than 70% of us. Why? We're living longer, right? Technology has advanced throughout the years. And so the easiest answer to that is leverage. Some people leverage is insurance. Use somebody else's money, right? So the tool of choice that I use to protect against portfolio erosion, asset erosion because of healthcare expenses is life insurance with long-term care rider. Rider is another word for addition. So you
Hmm.
buy a permanent life insurance policy. You can talk with your advisor as to which one makes sense for you. Whole life, variable universal life, index universal life. In the US, those are our choices, right? With that policy, there's a cash value component as well inside of there that's invested or it's attributed interest or dividends of some sort. You can, most companies allow this, add a long-term care feature, meaning when the client has a triggering event, which means activities of daily living, like feeding yourself, bathing yourself, continence issues, some type of mental instability like dementia, Alzheimer's, can't transfer yourself from bed to chair. When these triggered events happen, at least two of them, then you can actually use your policy while living, your life insurance policy while living, tax free to pay for those expenses.
Hmm.
And if it's dementia, it's generally an automatic qualifier. You don't need anything else to happen. If it's Alzheimer's dementia, then you can't do those other things anyway. And it's generally very simple. At least the company I've used, when I told you the story about my younger client who passed away in her 30s, when I was starting the process, it was a very simple form. And ultimately, the client signs, needs a doctor to sign to just verify that yes, this person needs help and needs care. It's very simple. And just keep in mind, every dollar that you use from that life insurance to pay for long-term care expenses reduces the death benefit dollar for dollar. That's how the policies work that I recommend to clients. So if you have $100,000 policy, you took out 30,000 for long-term care expenses, your beneficiaries would get 70,000 upon your passing tax-free.
Hmm.
So to me, leverage is one of the smartest ways to do this. You use somebody else's money. Some people choose to self-fund. I solve for both. I determine with clients' portfolio assets, cash, investments, retirement assets, could you afford to pay this out of pocket? Some people can. And some people, like me, even though I ran a financial plan on me and my husband, I still made him and me get the insurance.
Hmm.
Even though my financial plan said, you're fine, you can self-fund, doesn't matter, get it anyway. Why? Because I have a personal experience and, helping to care for my grandmother as well as both of my parents. And so I don't even want to chance it, right? I don't
Hmm.
want my kids having to step in with a dime. I just need them to emotionally be there.
It's a slippery slope and a difficult conversation for people
It is.
to think about until they have to go through. So we just went through it with my grandparents who are in long term
Mm,
care right now, and they're still living. But even just getting them, from the moment that we realize they have to go into long term care, and this goes into estate planning, this goes into life insurance, the whole 9 yards. So it's very
yes,
top of
sir.
mind for me. But you don't, if you've never gone through it,
Correct.
you never want to go through it
Correct.
because it's it's awful. It is awful, and
Awful.
and I wasn't even the one to go through it. I saw my mom go through it for her mother, and it wrecked her. She had to go figure out where all of her bank accounts were located. She had to figure out all the bills that she had to pay that weren't being paid for 18 months because
Correct.
she had dementia. And so there's people calling for money, and then we have to get them into a nursing home, and a lot of them didn't have, you have to wait until there's availability and then you get them
Correct.
in, and
Yes. Go on the
then
list.
there's, oh, it
It's
is
a nightmare.
it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
And
And
emotionally,
so
you're dealing with someone who you love, respect, not being in their full capacity. So it's a lot to try to deal with.
yeah, so and ultimately where I was trying to go with that was the expense of long-term care is enormous.
Yes,
It's
sir.
enormous. And that is where I think it makes so much sense to do early planning on taking care of your descendants, the people who you care about that are ultimately going to have to care for you, like make their life as easy as possible. And that is going to take some work on the front end, both financially and organizationally. And so
Correct.
I loved that. I love the fact that that is top priority for you, and is something that
Yeah.
you put very high priority for your clients.
I'll give you a little anecdote here. I had a client to where young, healthy, in his 30s, and I, would get on him about estate planning, right? We've done everything else, very wealthy, investments, all the fancy stuff, right? That people come to me for. And I'm like, but you're missing this piece. Like, where's all this money going to go if da 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 da? And I brought it up for several years. He said, if you mention this one more time, I'm going to fire you. Like, I don't want to talk about that. That's negative. Like, you're putting this spirit of death on me. And I said, I respect your decision. I am just notating that I tried to tell you twice. And unfortunately, it wasn't until he had a very close family member pass away that he called me and said, "Do it, do it."
Hmm.
He just kind of called me very frank. Okay, do it, because it was unexpected. It was a young person. They passed away unexpectedly, and he's like, "Get all the attorneys involved. You figure it out. I'll just tell you what I want, and y'all figure it out, right?" And so it's just sad that sometimes it has to take that before people realize it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
gift that
Sean,
keeps giving, though. So
it is. It is if it's done
it keeps giving.
properly. If
Yeah.
it's done properly, yeah. So, Rashana, this has been a fantastic interview. I think it's such a breath of fresh air to speak with someone who is so educated, but also so passionate about um, putting their client's best interest in mind, but also like the one of the things that really stands out about you is, and I didn't even highlight this, but and I kind of chuckled when you said it happened, but it is so um like you don't see this happen. Like you don't see people who do this, but like putting together your client events, like getting your clients together as a celebration, as a get together that builds a deep relationship and a deep trust with you that gets beyond just transactional. I think that is so noteworthy, and I think it's
Yeah.
so so honorable. And I want to really emphasize that because that is something that I don't see anybody do. So I applaud you for that. And I think anybody
Thank you.
who's listening right now, like whether you reach out to Rashana or not, as you are exploring your own financial advisor, like I want you to know what's out there, right? I want you to know that like these advisors are out there, and in the experience is really really important. Like you don't want someone who's just transactional. You want someone to go deep into your experience, into your situation, but also you want to know that they actually care about you. And I really wanted to highlight that because I think that's totally unique that most people don't do. Most advisors don't do, or maybe they do, and I just haven't spoken with them. I'm not sure, but I think that's really incredible.
Thank you,
Is there
Joe.
anything that you want to leave my listeners before we wrap up that we didn't talk about?
Is put yourself first. When I say that, not selfishly, but understand every day that you're able to get up, and earn money. That's a huge blessing and it's an asset. And protect that asset. That's one of your biggest assets is your ability to get up and earn and being a good steward over those earnings and proactively planning to efficiently build that wealth, protect it, manage it, and transfer it is what that advisor is there for. Don't underestimate the value in that relationship and the generations that will benefit from your stewardship. So that's why I would leave you.
Rashonner, where can people find you? Where can we drop some links? How can we send people your way?
So Rashonner.Lillie. So my first name dot last name at M as in Mary, F as in Frank, P as in Paul.com. That's my email address. My first and last name at LinkedIn. You can connect with Reveal Wealth Strategies on Facebook as well. And I think that will cover all bases. My phone number, business line, 832-371-3656.
Awesome. Rashonner, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed hearing your story and a little bit about your thought process and how you go about working with your clients. We'll be sure to drop all those links in the show notes down below. And if you're listening right now and you reach out to Rashonner, let her know that you found her on Experts Unleashed. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Bye-bye.